It's an honor to welcome you. Excuse me. It's an honor to welcome you today to the space built with purpose, passion, and pride. Today, we gather not just to share ideas, but to ignite a movement that celebrates richness of Latino culture, amplifies the voices of Latino women, and empowers allies to stand beside us in solidarity. Our purpose is to inspire and promote the Latino voice through meaningful engagement, mentorship, professional development, and our mission is to form thriving community where Latina women and their allies collaborate, grow, and rise together. This isn't just a presentation, it's a call to action, a chance to build bridges, unlock potential, and shape a future where every voice is heard, valued, and uplifted. My name is Maria Mejia. I'm VP of Client Services at Maverick Payments. I've been in the payments industry for my entire professional career, over 25 years. I'm currently, like I said, the Vice President of Client Services at Maverick Payments, and we're honored to host today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maria. Yes, and Myra Meza here. For those of you that don't know me, I am the VP of Business Development at Fiserv. I also am one of the leaders for the Hispanic and Latino inclusion groups within Fiserv. So super excited how, my passion translate into the Paytech industry, right? 20 years plus now and counting. Super excited to be one of the co-leads with an amazing co-chair, Maria, an amazing committee, helping us to bring you these type of events, help you understand and know a little bit about the Latino culture, and then separately, or more importantly, how that translates into the payments industry overall. So thank you so much. Maria, if you can move on to the next slide. So why are we here today? So Hispanic Heritage Month. Wanted to give you guys an opportunity to understand a little bit of the background of how it all came to be and the terms, right? You heard me just say now Hispanic and Latino. Well, what does that mean exactly? So for Hispanic, the usage really comes from essentially those that are Spanish-speaking countries. So, it's not unusual to hear that term Hispanic. However, more around the late 80s, early 90s, there was an adoption of the word Latino to basically identify those that are from the what is considered the Latino countries, Central America, South America, and of course, two of our wonderful countries in the Caribbean. It doesn't, using the term Hispanic does exclude Brazilians as they do speak Portuguese. So I think it's important to note that. Also, something that is referenced a lot is a person that is from Spain uses the term, or you can refer to them as Hispanic, although as you're going to see in the next slide, we don't necessarily within that space, they don't necessarily use the word Hispanic. From a geographical perspective, as I mentioned, most Central and South American Caribbeans will refer to them as Latino, Latin, and you now, in this day and age, you'll hear more of the younger generation using Latine with an E at the end to kind of be more inclusive of everyone, right? And you will also hear the term Latinx, which also represents and provides inclusivity to the LGBTQ plus community. So not in terms of the terms and the usage of the words, it's predominantly used in the US. You won't hear it so much in European countries. It's really more US based. So next slide, Maria. So let's talk about Hispanic Heritage Month, the date and how this came to be. So essentially, this started as a week-long celebration in 1969 under President Lyndon B. Johnson. And then later on in 1988, President Reagan expanded the celebration to be a month long. The time frame is significant as it coincides with the independence of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua from Spain. Mexico's Independence Day, however, is celebrated on September 16th. Those are celebrations, and this is more specific to the US. On the flip side, if you think about most of these Latin countries, What they celebrate on October 12th, coming up in a few days, is Dia de la Raza, which essentially translates to the Day of the Race, which is used to celebrate essentially the cultural fusion of indigenous people. And once the Spanish influence came into those countries of indigenous backgrounds. So essentially, that's why that's how those dates came to be and how this ended up being a month-long celebration. But if you are Latino, if you know Latinos, if you're surrounded by Latinos, you know that we celebrate anything and everything. Every day is a celebration. Any excuse to get together with family, celebrate, and just any reason to just, have that unity. So we don't necessarily need dates, but wanted to give you the background as to why we celebrate those particular days. So with that, one of the other, so when we talk about celebration, there's many things that we can do to celebrate. And there are many ways that we celebrate our people. And one of the things that we wanted to do today is kind of talk about how people in a lot of ways with their actions are celebrating our culture, are putting our culture at the forefront of everyone to know and understand and be able to have that awareness. So with that, I'm going to present to you Favi, who's going to talk to us and walk us through some individuals within the community that you may or may not know about that are making tremendous contributions to the cultural community.
Thank you, Myra. Hope everyone's doing okay. My name is Fabiola or Favi. Whatever's easier to remember is like what I like to say. So I just want to thank you again and thanks to Maria and the whole committee for putting this webinar together. I think it's really important that we highlight some of these pillars in our community to really show that leadership example that, I think we all want to embody and we do embody every day. So, as we're celebrating 20 years of Paytech Women, we also celebrate the women in our broader community, the pillars who embody leadership, resilience, and cultural pride from Mexico to California and all the way to Indiana. Each of these stories reflect a different way that we lead, yet they all remind us that representation and progress begin when someone dares to lead with authenticity. So take Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico's first woman and first Jewish president. Her story is about reimagining what leadership looks like, grounded in science, faith, and inclusion. Her quote, "I'm a mother, grandmother, scientist, and woman of faith, and as of today, president." And I say that very emotionally because this is something that is very near and dear to my heart, my father's heart. I mean, a lot of people from Mexico are just truly proud of what Claudia's been, her agenda and her mission is for Mexico. So I think, her words say so much. It's really a declaration of identity and transformation. Next, if you can switch the slide. Thank you.
Hard to slide a little bit.
Then there's Camille Harper Zapata, a queer Chicana Boricua from Stockton, my mom's hometown in California, now leading digital strategy for California's governor. Her journey reminds us how identity and innovation can work together. She doesn't set aside who she is to lead, she leads through who she is. And her quote, "I'm a queer Chicana Boricua from Stockton. That's not just a label, it's my lens." And our final pillar today, someone we're honored to have with us live, is Jesusa Rivera. And I don't know if we can pin Jesusa's screen so everyone can see her.
Yeah.
So a little bit of background on Jesusa. Jesusa's journey began as a migrant worker and grew into a lifelong mission of advocacy, helping families access dignity, education, and opportunity. So Jesusa, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so grateful to hear your story and the impact you continue to make across communities. Before I dive in, how are you doing?
Doing well here, getting ready to start this conversation. Thank you, Fabi.
Yeah, of course. So now when I came across Jesusa, I was actually listening to an episode of Queen Latifah's Unity in the Community. And I knew I wanted to share her story across LinkedIn or just, within our community here. But I thought, why not just ask her to be a part of the webinar? And she decided to do it. So I'm really blessed and honored to have her here. And I'd like, for you, Jesusa, to share a little bit about what your day-to-day looks like. So it'd be, good for the audience to get a sense of what your role entails and the kind of work you lead.
Absolutely. So I'm also a mother, a sister. Um, Let me see, everything that goes along with what a female is. At this point, a grandmother. I've got two wonderful grandboys, a son who I'm dearly proud of, and a daughter-in-law. There's 11 in my family. My work has come full circle. So I am a senior career coach with Proteus. I work with seasonal and migrant farm workers in the state of Indiana. And when I'm not doing that, I'm either with my family or doing what I love to do best is community organizing, organizing our immigrant community so that they step up and utilize the voice that they were born with.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And so, what we want to kind of dive into is a few questions that I think would resonate with the work you're doing and the work that we're doing here at Paytech Women. So if we can, let's start with something that's foundational: access. So there's often a lack of trust between underserved communities and financial institutions. From your experience, what do you think contributes to that? And how can we begin rebuilding that trust?
Absolutely, absolutely. So coming from a farm working community and of course my parents being immigrant, trust with financial institution has never been a simple thing. Both my parents worked long hours, as many of our farm workers do. And when it comes to opening a bank account, walking into a bank usually is a little fearful, only because of the language. They're walking into a building they know nothing about. Most of the people that they're confronted with don't speak their language and not understanding the documents that they have to sign. So growing up, my family, my mom and dad, they hid their cash under the mattress, and just like many of our farm workers do, it all stayed at home because it was like you have to feel it to have it. And putting it in a bank, it's like, okay, so where's my money and how can I get to it? So you have to kind of build that trust. So the mistrust comes from decades and decades of exclusion, the language barriers, documents only in English, institutions that didn't see us as worthy clients. So rebuilding trust starts with the financial institutions doing more than just the outreach. I believe that, they need to show up in our communities, host workshops in English or in Spanish or in indigenous languages, hire the people that look just like us, and be able to kind of communicate in our own way of thinking. And also, the biggest point here is sitting down and just listening before you start selling. So trust is earned not by marketing, but by proving you will stand beside us when we're most vulnerable, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. No, I think that resonates well. A lot of the conversations I'll have with different partners that are working in different communities, I think that's the biggest thing is there's a huge potential for, there's a lot of value there in those communities that haven't really been touched because I think people don't know what the approach should be, or they just don't, on the flip side, don't feel comfortable approaching that situation. So it's very true that we do need to, start getting in there and obviously, speaking to the things that they might be hesitating to in order to get a merchant account or a bank account or some type of loan for their business. So thank you. I appreciate you sharing that perspective.
Absolutely.
Something that comes up in conversations among Latinas in professional spaces is code switching, how we adjust our tone, language, or presentation depending on who's in the room. How has that shown up in your journey, and what have you learned from navigating those spaces?
Yeah, that's a touchy one because sometimes even listening to you all speak, that this isn't our normal tone.
Mhm.
Sometimes we Latinas tend to get a little loud, right? And so we have to kind of tone it down. So as an Indigenous woman, code switching has been both a survival skill and really a heavy burden. In the fields with my family, I spoke a mix of English and Spanish, Spanglish, right? I grew up speaking Spanish first, but after a while, my parents said English only in the home because my parents wanted to learn how to speak English. And so my tone is warm. I don't have an accent. Even at times, I'm told by others, "Oh my gosh, you speak very good English. And even without an accent, where did you learn how to speak English?" some of you may relate to a question like that. You kind of just like, ah, dear, okay. I learned in the same school as you did, and you kind of have to watch because people don't understand. They don't understand. And in groups or even in policy meetings, my Candace changes. And I minimize my tone so that people take me seriously. And at first, I thought that this was empowerment, but over time, I realized that it was also erasure. Pieces of me hidden away to meet someone else's expectations. So I still code switch, but now I choose when and why. I've reclaimed the right to speak with my fullness of my identity, right? My face tells the story of migration, land, and resilience. And if someone thinks that that makes me less than a person, that's a reflection on them and not me.
I love that. I mean, if I could just frame that, that would be amazing
Please.
to see. But thank you. That's amazing. And Jesus, I meant to show the video. I don't know if it's possible. Maria, if you can show the video of what her day-to-day looks like, and specifically, when she's.
Oh, yes, of course. I don't have the sound.
And that's okay. The sound here is basically building the relationships with the farm workers and the people that we serve. So it's really important to understand their needs. It's really important to also educate them on what to look for as they're working out in the fields. We want to make sure that our folks are paid when they should be paid, that they're living in good conditions, and they're not being treated as someone less than. That's really important.
Yeah, and in the audio, I love, she's basically teaching on pesticide safety, and these are things that you would think are common that should already be taught when you're, given a job and an assignment. But this is the kind of work that she does, and it really does take that extra step for us to come in and for people like Jesusa to come in and really, teach and further inform so that they can feel safe and, have access to all of the same things that we all should have access to.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And so, yeah, just going back to, feeling that sense of belonging. So you've worked across so many communities and advocacy spaces. Was there ever a moment where you truly felt seen and valued in a space that wasn't necessarily built for you?
Valued, yes. So there was a moment in a conference a couple of weeks ago in Cincinnati, and it was led entirely by farm workers and those connected to farm workers, and a few organizers. And the panels were in English and Spanish. So translation was available for the English speakers, and the food came from our own communities, and to get that feeling, I didn't feel like a guest trying to fit in. I felt like the space had been built for us right in the center. And that matters most because most spaces ask us to adapt to their own norms. And in this moment, the reversal happened. The space adapted to us. So that sense of belonging comes when people recognize that our ways of speaking, organizing, and living are not alternative, but central to the movement for justice, especially in the days that we're living today.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that, Paytech Woman has done such a great job doing, is building this platform and a space. We do have a summit coming up in a few weeks, and I know that a lot of us look forward to that because we're in a room full of supportive, strong women, and we're all here to achieve, some similar goals, if not, more, right? So it's very important to feel like you have a sense of belonging, and that's so important. So with all the energy, empathy, and care that mentorship takes, how is it that you cope personally, and stay grounded while you're pouring into others?
Oh, yes. So when you don't see yourself in a leadership or even in a mentorship position, mentorship can be impossible, but leaders aren't only those with titles. So for myself, my first mentor was a female, was a farm worker herself, teaching me how to fight for a wage theft case, or even to speak in front of a city council meeting. So just as simple as that. So look sideways and not upwards for guidance. A lot of times those folks that are around our circle are the best ones to seek for that mentorship. So if you're searching for mentors, seek people who affirm your roots, even if they're not in a senior position. And always remember that you can mentor now. Every time that you share your knowledge, it's so important. Sharing information that you have, that's what mentorship, that's what leadership is all about. And sharing that with someone navigating like immigration papers or surviving discrimination or learning their labor rights, you're shaping that next generation of leaders. So representation is not just about who's at the top, but it's also who refuses to disappear along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I know we have, very little time, but I would love to, continue this conversation and passing it over. But, your words and work continue to remind us what it means to lead with heart. And I know that resonates deeply with, everybody here that's watching. So, your words are such a powerful reminder that, change often begins at the ground level in our families and our work and our courage to speak up. And as we continue, we want to expand this conversation beyond the individual into how these roots, these raíces, continue to continue and connect across LATAM and the U.S. So thank you again, Jesusa. I really appreciate your time, and we hope to continue working with you in some aspect even after this webinar. So thank
Oh,
you.
absolutely. Somos chingonas, okay? So we're here.
That's right. So as we move into our next segment, Bridging Raíces, we'll hear from leaders who are building those bridges every day, shaping the future of finance, technology, and inclusions across borders.
Awesome, Fabi. So if anyone has any questions now, we can actually dedicate a few minutes to present any questions to Jesusa. You can either come off mute, or if you're being shy, you can put your question on the chat. We can look out for that. Otherwise, as Fabi mentioned, and on the deck, you will see the link to how you can connect with her offline.
If you think of a question, we can also save that for the next Q&A as well. So
Okay,
no rush.
Perfect. I was on mute. Brings me back to 2020. Let me start over from the top. Thank you, Fabi, for bringing us Jesusa more than all. And Jesusa, thank you for taking the time to share your background, all the great work that you're doing in the community, and and helping us understand how it is that you're helping to educate these workers on their rights. And and there are a couple of things that you said within what you're doing, and you mentioned just kind of having that understanding, right, where there are things that don't necessarily translate in the same way, and there's not that cultural awareness and understanding, and it sounds like you're helping bridge that gap, which is why we thought today would be good to get some insight from individuals that have that type of professional work experience, and how within the corporate community, what all people are doing to essentially help bridge these gaps, but also more importantly, how these individuals have actually pivoted and adapted, right? Because you use the word adapt to essentially the American ways, the American culture, the American work path. So with that, I'm going to introduce you three amazing individuals that thank you for taking the time today to share your story. So the first person we have is Mariana Will, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. So Mariana, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Myra, for inviting me. I feel very honored to be part of this group, and I'm feeling very inspired by Jesusa and everyone who has had the opportunity to share their story and ideas, or even be just mentioned. Well, I'm born, raised, everything in Mexico, proud to be Mexican. I started my career in Mexico. I earned a scholarship from the National Institute of Science and Technology, did my master's in Sweden, my first master's, where I got to know a little bit about the fintech and mobile payments industry. Came back to Mexico, where I started working for a Swedish company. But in Mexico, we introduced, or I led the marketing and communications efforts for this firm. We introduced the first mobile payment solution into the country and the region. Then I had the opportunity to work for MasterCard, looking after marketing campaigns for Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. Then I moved to the US and started a new journey. I joined Fiserv. My first role was an international role where I had the opportunity to support the international press office for the company, working hand in hand with our global VP of corporate communications, and working also with Fiserv communications teams across the region, including Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Panama, and Brazil. As I said, I'm very proud to be Mexican. I'm very grateful for being born there. I think that thanks to that experience growing up in Mexico made me a strong woman, resilient woman, passionate, and a person of faith as well, and social, happy, festive. I also celebrate everything. I celebrate to be here today.
Thank you. We're so happy to have you, Mariana. Great background, very Miss International for sure. But with that, we're going to pivot over to our next presenter today, Allison. If you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayra, and the rest of the team at Paytech for having us here today. My name is Allison Ricards. I was actually born and raised in Peru. So I'm peruana de corazón y de la tierra y la comida de Perú.
She said the food, the land, the everything, you name it, she's proud.
Proud to be from Peru. Grew up in a very multicultural environment with my family that came from other countries as well. My father was born in the Philippines. My grandparents were from England, Italy, and Spain. Growing up in Peru, learning all the different cultures, the food, and of course, that thing that your parents always teach you, you have to try everything in life and make sure that you respect other people's views and who you are and what you do. And I actually graduated the university in Peru as well. And I had an opportunity to work for American Airlines in Peru first. That was my very, very first job in Peru. And then I had the opportunity to come to the US for a job that brought me with an H-1B1 visa. And it was basically because not only did I have the skills, but I spoke more than one language. And I think that's something that I've always been very proud of, that my father made sure that we spoke multiple languages at the house. And I did the same thing with my children here in the US, because I married somebody from Peru who was born here in the US. And I said, if our children do not speak Spanish perfectly, I am going to be very disappointed. Couple of years later, these kids have graduated from college, and they both ended up getting their jobs at two really good companies. And the last skill that the company required for them to have was speak perfect Spanish. And they did. So that made me a proud mom when my son came to me and said, Mom, thank you for making me speak perfect Spanish all my life. And they were born here in the US. They have no accents on their Spanish, Peruvian accents maybe, but that's all they have. And here at Fiserv, I actually work in communications. I also support the finance team in LATAM and other different regions within Fiserv. And it's interesting because, as Mariana mentioned, we have people from all over the world here. And it's always been interesting to see how people communicate better in their own language. So one of the things that I started was some table talks that we do in Latin America that we were conducting in English. And one day I woke up and I said, you know what, we need to talk to these people in their language. I don't speak Portuguese, but I understand it. So we started doing table talks in English, Spanish, and Portuguese at the same time. And the level of interaction and connection with the people in those countries has gone up substantially just because we're speaking their language and they feel included and they feel like they're being listened to. And it's been one of the greatest things that I've experienced here, just connecting with people from all over the world. And I'm very passionate as well to just showcase my culture and be proud of who I am and where I came from. So thank you, Mayra.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. I love that. Language is everything, right? Yes, and it's the way that you build connection for sure. And there's just so many things that don't translate the same. So, you know, having that opportunity to be able to speak in the language is amazing. I feel like that could be a whole session on its own, but we're here to talk about something else. But you're giving me ideas here. But yes, it's amazing and incredible. And next, we're going to turn over to Lucio. Lucio, welcome and thank you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucio. I'm the CEO of Neighborhood Payments here in Chicago. I started back in the payment industry in 2007 with First Data Independent Sales. And I was a sub agent back then. And by like 2010, I opened up my own ISO agent office. And it's just been going really well for me. The first time I went to Mexico was in 2014. And when I went to Mexico, I fell in love with it. And I also went back like a year later to open up a call center. So I have a call center in Leon, Guanajuato. And currently right now we employ like about 30 people down there. And we're going to be opening up another call center in Cancun in March of next year, which is really well. And I became a Mexican citizen. I bought property in Mexico. I work with a lot of people from on both sides of the border. Our main customer. I'm sorry if you hear background noise. I'm actually across the street from the Cubs stadium because I'm gonna go to the playoff game today. So I apologize about that. But I've been in the business a long time, and I started being like a business loan broker as well in 2010. So I guess we'll be called like a super ISO for that. We do a lot of business loans. We work with a lot of lenders that's been back then. I've been meeting a lot of them since they first started, and they grew to become real big now. We work with a lot of Hispanic businesses, and we help create trust because I guess in the payment industry, there's not a lot of trust, and people take advantage of the Hispanic businesses. So we have like a lot of honesty, transparency. I have like technicians on staff that go out and we do white glove service, and we don't really charge extra fees, and we have real good retention, and we work. I think I'm pretty sure we are like the largest Clover dealer like in for Clover, at least in Milwaukee and Chicago and Indiana, Michigan area. But we help out a lot. We try to provide as white glove service as we can. We help them with financing, not just merchant cash advance. We do like term loans, SBA loans, equipment financing, stuff that has really low rates, which is nice. It was hard in the beginning when I started doing that because a lot of businesses didn't lend to ITIN numbers. So I had to find lenders and talk them into opening up programs for ITIN and also giving them low rates, which is good. So they don't have to go with a high rate merchant cash advance. And that's all I have for now. But it's been working out really good, and we've been helping out everybody. Oh, we also have a company that we're opening up, MexiDocs, to help out people when they land back in Mexico, or if they want to open business in Mexico, to help navigate it because it's hard to find information. Like you go to one government building, they'll tell you one thing, and then you go to another one and another one just to end up back at the first one, which is crazy. So we have a lot of assets that we're putting together on both sides of the border for people that are doing both. With my friend Joe Claudio out of San Diego, he's big into like binational stuff, helping out the Hispanics on both sides. Of why not? If we live in the U.S., why don't we do business in Mexico? A lot of people don't go to back to Mexico. They're scared to go to Mexico. They don't want to go to Mexico, or whatever the reason is. And there's a huge opportunity to go down there, start business, and help out the people that are well, obviously our family and friends that are down there and other people that we know.
Wow, that's great. That's great to hear, Lucio. So it sounds like you're doing a lot of great work within the community as well, actually, from a business perspective, right? Helping them where there are a lot of gaps here. And you're right. I mean, Allison was talking about language, but there is a lot of language opportunities that people don't take advantage of or haven't really thought of. So it's great to hear that you're giving back in those ways to the merchant community. And so it sounds like your story started in the US, but you found your way back to your roots, which is phenomenal to hear. Which let's talk a little bit about that, because Mariana and Allison have a little bit of a different story, right? They came from Latin America, Central America, Mexico into the US, where you've been here and now you're going the other way, helping back and give back to that community or to your hometown, right? So let's talk about Allison. So you talked about how you started in American Airlines. What were some of the biggest cultural or professional adjustments that you had to make when you transitioned initially from LATAM to the US?
Obviously, the first thing was knowing the culture of the city that I was coming to. I came straight to Atlanta, and I growing up, I went to an English school, so the English that I was used to was very formal, very specific on how they pronounce certain things. And then I come to the States and people were speaking so fast, and it was hard for me to adapt to this new language, new country, new culture. But I think you have to listen, you have to ask questions, and find a mentor, like Jesusa mentioned. Find a mentor that will help you throughout your journey. I was new to a country, new to every thing, like the office environment. I was probably one of the youngest ones that came into that office, so everybody would treat me like the kid, and it was just hard to not be just the kid. I wanted to have a name for myself, so I started learning multiple things throughout and will shadow people. That was one of the things that helped me, and never said no to an opportunity that was presented to me. Even if it was not part of my job, I would to say, yes, how can I help? How can I learn? How can I do this? And it definitely helped me, grow in my role and learn, because I had to learn. I had to learn so many different things, not just the job, but the country, the culture, the way that people did business. I remember the first time when people were introducing me, and I wanted to give them a kiss or a hug, because that's normal in South America. You go into a client meeting and the first thing you're doing is, hugging the client, giving them a hug. And here it was like, almost stop. You can't do that. It's something that you have to learn. And it took time. And then I became a little, like a little robot every time I would try to say hi to people. And I remember we had training from a team of Colombia and Venezuela came for training. And they're the ones that were giving me hugs because I was the trainer back then. I was like, wait, you guys need to. And they're like, well, aren't you from Peru? Like, why are you acting like this? So those were
Right.
the things that you get to adjust as you go. And as I said, shadow someone, find a mentor, and ask questions. Definitely.
Excellent. So, Mariana, the same question for you, right? But for you, I think it's even a little bit different because Allison was starting in her career. You were well into your career. So how did that translate for you? Well, what were some things that you had to do differently or adapt and learn? And you're on mute if you're speaking. You're still on mute, Mariana.
She ran out of battery. She's gonna connect soon, so maybe Lucio
Okay.
can.
Yeah. So, okay. So okay. Lucio, for you, have you, earlier Fabi asked Jesusa about code switching, right? For you as a male in the industry, as a Latino, have you ever had to code switch or just how you present yourself, in the different work environments? When you're not working with the Latino merchants, I will add.
I'm actually very, very good at doing that. So I had to do that because I started at an early age and I tried to get contracts to become an ISO and become a broker for lending and loans. I was young, Hispanic. I really never worked with like bigger offices. I only worked in in a call center for a few months, but then I went out after that working for somebody, so it wasn't too long. So I'm very diversified, and depending on who I'm with, that's how I speak. So so I got a lot of people that I work with. Like I could go to New York, Wall Street. I got like deals so I could raise capital and do stuff. Is one way. I could be over here in Chicago on the South Side, and little La Veita is another. When I'm in Mexico, I have to adapt and be differently, and it's the same thing when you go to different states too, because the Hispanic people are not the same like in Phoenix compared to Chicago, and it's so I'm extremely really good at that actually.
So,
I don't
so
know
you
if it helps because I'm a Gemini, but yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Maybe that could be it. But that's amazing. And how, and I'm sorry, I know but your story, you mentioned how now you're tapping into Mexico, right? Looking for opportunities there. And obviously you're growing and expanding your business through there. How have you been received from the flip side, right? Because you're speaking the language, and I don't know if it happens to you, but I speak Spanish. When I get together with my family, I'm from Honduras. We speak differently, so I have had to adapt as well in my language. Now, if I speak to my family that is in Honduras, they laugh at me because my Spanish, although it's the same, it is a little bit different because there's things and sayings that I may not be accustomed to. Well, what has that experience been like for you now that you're tapping into Mexico and going over there and trying to get business from the business owners there?
To be honest, I don't speak. I'm not extremely fluent in Spanish. So like here, when I started doing business in Chicago, I know people who translate, so I'll call on WhatsApp and I'll have people translate for me. I do speak some Spanish, but not like I can't hold entire conversations. And when I went to Mexico, everybody thought I was crazy because I didn't speak Spanish, and I'm like, I'm gonna go to Mexico and open up a business. And they're like, where? You don't even speak Spanish. You don't know anybody. I'm like, I'm going to make it happen. When I first went, I went to Leon, Guadalajara, Aguascalientes, looking to see what city I was going to open up in. And I chose Leon. And then I just had to figure it out and just wing it, which I kind of did and it's the same thing when you go online. Like here, you go online and look at office spaces or talk to a realtor. Down there, when I was speaking to real estate agents, they didn't have access like the MLS over here to look at everything, or like LoopNet. They don't have that type of system where it's everything listed in one central court management system. Every time I had to call different realtors, then I started looking at different offices and calling the numbers on the building, and then some people were bilingual, and then I just figured it out. But as far as me being, so a lot of the people that I work with either moved down there that were back U.S. citizens, or they got deported. I work with some people that were just raised down there, but not too many. But when I do go, because when I became a citizen and I went to go apply to get a credit card at Bancapo, the lady didn't like the people there. They don't really like me because I'm American, even though I say I'm Mexican. Because I tried to apply for a credit card and I gave her my Mexican passport. And then I had my birth certificate and I was like, here. And she was like, where were you born? I was like, in the US. She was like, you're not Mexican. And then
Yeah.
she didn't want to let me apply for a credit card. She was like, I'm not letting you apply. You're not Mexican.
Oh,
So
wow.
it just depends, I guess, on the people. But for the
Yes,
most
yes.
part, people that lived in the US and went back down there, they like me a lot. People like from through family, they do. But when I try to do business in certain places, I don't know if that's why I had to do a lot of running around. The type of information that I was getting wasn't 100% like correct and stuff.
Right. Okay.
But
So a
for the
lot of
most part,
adapting, a lot of learning the way. So excellent. So
yeah.
Ellison, question for you. So when you think about your experience in LATAM, um, talk to me about how that shaped your approach to leadership and collaboration, or even problem solving here in the US versus how things were essentially done in LATAM.
Well, when I started working for American Airlines, I actually had to work at the airport as a ticket agent, dealing with a lot of security issues. The airports had different, I don't know, teams that were in charge of just the drug administration, and then you had the counterterrorism, and a day could turn into a nightmare when they found somebody that was trying to kidnap a kid, or somebody that was trying to get on the plane and was, loaded with you know what. So it teaches you that you have to learn how to pivot in a situation like that. Obviously, the resources are very different here in the States. I've been fortunate to have had wonderful leaders and jobs that have allowed me to grow. There, it's sometimes harder because of just how the countries are and the needs that we have. And especially if you are in a place like Peru, I remember we used to have blackouts. And all of a sudden, we would be at the airport, trying to get the passengers through. And all of a sudden, the airport, lights went down. Everybody's like upset. People are screaming at you. And when you have to deal with customer service and you don't have the resources to do that, you become very, very resourceful. And that's one of the things that I learned there, that here it has been a little easier to pivot when there's a situation, because I used to have more needs and more things that I needed to do in order for me to perform my job. Here, I think we have a lot of resources, a lot of support, and it's a little easier when it comes to a
Right.
situation where you actually have to pivot. And you learn that the hard way in our countries.
Yeah, agreed that there's a lot more conveniences. Blackouts are probably a foreign thing, although they do happen. I've been in New York and there's been a
Yeah, they can
blackout.
happen. They can happen.
But yes, it builds, I think a lot of what we experience in our countries, for those of us that have had the opportunity to be raised in our country, but I'm sure for those even that haven't, I'm sure you've heard your mom and your tia's stories tell you, have them tell you the stories, and it does build resilience, and that resilience can absolutely translate to the corporate world that we are all in, right? So excellent. So Mariana, welcome back. So we heard about Allison's experience. She started her early career in the US, right? Whereas you came to the US when you were well advanced in your career. So can you tell us what were some of the biggest cultural or professional adjustments that you had to make when you transitioned from LATAM to the US?
Yeah, absolutely. And apologies, I had a technical issue, but
No worries.
thank you for your understanding, Myra. I think that, like even in Europe, people take an hour for lunch, not 2 hours like in Mexico City, but at least an hour. So when I came here, I was like, okay, it's lunchtime. I knew that it was earlier. So, like walked away from my desk, and I was like, why nobody eats? I mean, I'm the only one walking away from my desk. Then I realized that most people eat at their desks. And I was like, oh my gosh, but I mean, you need a little bit of break. You need to, walk a little bit around. And, like in Mexico, la hora de la comida, lunchtime, is like, it's a big thing, I knew that it was different, obviously, but still nowadays I feel a little bit guilty that I'm pretty much one of the 3 people in my entire area or floor that walks away from their desk to eat lunch. But speaking about also switching codes, I like to, of course, I'm mindful that I'm in a different country, it's a different culture. And of course, I try to be respectful of that. But at the same time, I try to keep what is very essential and very important for me. Like, I need at a minimum 15 minutes to eat my lunch, and, and be grateful for that. And then walk a little bit. I don't want to get unhealthy. So I think that was a huge adjustment. Then the other thing is that even when I was in Europe, I had Spanish clients, and like people in Spain and across Latin America, they tend to work until very late. I didn't know that. When I came here and I saw people, leaving their office, the office at 4:30. With the time I understood that's why they don't leave their desk to eat, because they want to leave early. But for me, it was like, oh my gosh, they're going very, very early. And comparing with Spanish, Hispanic culture, people leave the office at 8 p.m. sometimes, 9 p.m. Like I remember that with this company, in my previous role, we did a business trip to Pfizer in Mexico City. And I mean, we were waiting for the country manager to be done with his meetings and days, and also to other colleagues to go out for dinner because, I mean, they were very nice. The hospitality there is great. So they wanted they wanted to take us out for dinner and listen mariachi and everything. But I mean, people there were at the office it was almost 9 p.m. And yeah, very, very late. And obviously, I'm here. I mean, most people are not working at 9 p.m. Like I live in the Midwest, I live in Wisconsin. In my area, like many families are already sleeping, by 9. So that was like a shock. Whereas,
Right.
like in the Mexican culture, it's like we're just getting ready for dinner.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely very
So,
different. Sounds like a lot of adapting and getting acclimated with just the differences. Now that I hear you say they work later, I don't know about that. But again, it's probably because it's what I'm used to, right? Whereas people over there, that's the normal. So it makes total sense.
yeah.
So I wanna with only 4 minutes left of the session, I want to close out with one last question to you all, very, very quickly. For those that are starting their careers today, whether they were raised in the U.S. or in LATAM, what advice would you give them about embracing their identity, right, their culture, while navigating the corporate space? So Allison, I'll start it off with you.
I am living that right now with my children, who, as I mentioned, are starting their first corporate jobs. And I am happy to share that they are very proud of their Hispanic heritage and what they learned throughout these years. And they have had the opportunity to present in Spanish, to actually travel to Mexico to train. My son is an engineer, and he is training engineers in Mexico. And it's been, such a proud moment for me. So I would say learn another language, embrace your roots, and make sure that you find mentors that will help you along the way.
Excellent. So
I can go next.
Yes.
Yeah, what I would like to say is that even if we live in the US, today companies are global. Companies operate across the globe, and one of the fastest growing regions is Latin America, especially in the fintech and payments industry. Pfizer does business, as I have mentioned, across the region. And in my experience, from my perspective, I think that it's very, very important to get to know the country. I think that what Lucio is doing is amazing. Like he has seen with his own eyes what real Mexico looks like and the massive business opportunity. There's the possibility to develop international careers. And that, I mean, I would encourage people to see that opportunity or explore those opportunities. And whether you were born here or brought here, or if you have Hispanic heritage, feel proud about it. Amazing things have happened in Latin America. There are problems for sure, but people from that region are passionate. The culture is so rich, the food, the traditions, everything. And just feel proud for that amazing heritage.
Yes, absolutely. I think that part is definitely very important. So I'm going to close this out because we are now with 1 minute left, and I do want to give Maria an opportunity to tell you all about some things that we want to call out. So Allison, Lucio, Mariana, thank you so very much for taking the time today to share your experiences, right? How it all translated. We're super, it's delightful to hear what the other side looks like, right, and how it translates over to the US. So with that, Maria, we'll move on to the next slide, and then I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Let me just, here we go. So as we close out today's session, I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this movement. Your presence, your pride, and your passions are what makes the movement real. We've seen how visibility, connection, storytelling, the shift in culture, not just within our companies, but obviously around all of the eco payments world. The leaders we spotlighted today are living proof that when we lead with authenticity, we create space and value for others. And here's some other events that the Paytech women are having in the next coming month or so. So one of the big ones I wanted to really point out is the Paytech Women Summit. Just kind of wanted to give everybody that enthusiasm to keep pushing the energy we felt today, the purpose. Let's all get together November 4th in Atlanta. It'll be a great opportunity. And then before you log off, I just want to remind everybody to turn on your Paytech Women website, log in, turn on your notifications so you don't miss anything or any upcoming events. And then here's the information for the summit that's going to be happening in November. And then to my fellow leaders featured here, I thank you for showing up with the courage and reminding us that representation is just the beginning. If you would like to connect with these incredible women, follow us on LinkedIn, reach out, and keep the conversation going. We're here, we're visible, and we're ready to build with you. And on behalf of the Latino Inclusion Group and the Paytech Women, thank you for being here, for being you, and for helping us build something lasting. Let's keep the bridges, Raíces, growing in our community and leading with el corazón. Hasta pronto.
Thank you,
Hasta pronto.
guys.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.